Hello YouTube, my name is Fez. Welcome to the third episode of my series called How to Fix My Class. In this series, I will be talking about what I think should be changed to classes and specs that I'm most familiar with. I will try to change the least possible and make up the least amount of skills, talents, or glyphs. I tend to spend a lot of time thinking about this kind of stuff, so I decided to share my thoughts with you guys. So keep in mind that these are all my opinions on how I would like to see the game, not necessarily how the game should be. Today, we will be talking about the Death Knight, and to tell you my true opinion, Death Knights are pretty solid. Of course, they need some tweaks when it comes to damage and survivability, whether it's a buff or a nerf. But when it comes to playstyle, which is what I care mostly about, they're doing great. Since we're getting close to patch 5.2, I will first share with you guys some changes that are coming next patch that we're going to be including in this video anyway. For Unholy DKs, Summon Gargoyle is now free, and it deals nature and shadow damage. This change was needed since sometimes Gargoyle felt kinda like a waste of runic power, and a lot of the time I wouldn't use it because I needed to use the runic power for other things instead, but it would have been nice to be able to pop it too. The damage change was also needed, even though I would make it all shadow damage. Unholy Decays are about shadow damage and controlling the dead more than the other two specs. And Gargoyle is supposed to be a burst skill, so why not let it scale off of her mastery by making the damage full shadow? Now let's jump into changes I would make, starting by talents. In the level 57 tier, Anti-Magic Zone should be a based ability for Unholy or more specs, and replace it with Bone Shield. Let's not forget that was also in the Unholy tree. This ability should be balanced to compete with the others. I would also swap Purgatory with Conversion, since Conversion is not as outstanding when picking Lichborn 2, and also balance it to compete with the other talents in the tier. In the level 58 tier, replace the active part of Death's Advance with the old talent Desecration that would desecrate the ground around you when using Unholy runes, I believe it was, and enemies standing in it will be slowed. Those are all the changes that I will make to the talent tree. Now let's talk about glyphs. As I said in my previous episodes, I would change glyphs by making a whole new tier, not like prime glyphs once were, because glyphs are better than ever right now, but it does not feel complete to me yet. The new tier will be a middle tier of glyphs that are too good for minors but not good enough for majors, but I would only allow 2 glyphs per tier, still only having 6 in total, but only 2 that are game changing, plus 2 that are useful, and 2 that are for fun. The glyphs that I would put into this middle tier are Chains of Ice, Dancing Rune Weapon, Dark Succor, Death Grip, Outbreak, Pestilence, Death and Decay, Unholy Frenzy, Pillar of Frost, and finally Shifting Presences. The glyphs that I would modify are Enduring Infection by removing the damage reduction but leaving it as a major glyph, Mind Freeze to just reduce the cooldown of Mind Freeze, not adding runic power cost, but also leaving it as a major glyph. Strangulate, make it like the old improved Strangulate, reducing its cooldown by 50%, also applying to Asphyxiate. This will also be a major glyph. Vampiric Blood, only increasing healing received. Unholy Command, make it reduce the cooldown on Death Grip instead. Buff Death Coil, so it competes with the rest of the major glyphs. Spec specific changes. For Frost, I would change Blood of the North, so your blood strikes give you death runes instead of just having 2 death runes all the time. This would increase the skill cap by just a tiny bit and make it a bit less boring and making Bloodstrike not so worthless. I would also like to see Frost as the dual wielding spec. Maybe make it so it increases the chance on killing machine when dual wielding, which would make it proc a whole lot more since you're already hitting faster. And maybe add something to make your auto attacks deal some frost damage. And of course, remove the Might of the Frozen Waste passive. That's what makes Frost a one-button class. For Unholy, I already talked about in the beginning of this video. But for Blood, as some of you may know, I enjoy tanking a lot, but I find Blood tanking a bit bleh. I love the D&D and Blood Boil procs, but there are some skills that I feel should be used more and are not. To start with, Harsh Strike does too much damage. This ability is an AoE ability and should only be used for so. Reduce its damage and increase the damage of Blood Strike. So we use Blood Strike for single target and Heart for AoE. Next is Death Coil. Why is it there if we're not going to use it? Maybe make it more of a defensive ability. Here are some suggestions. Since Blizz already came out with such thing as active mitigation, DK's lack of it a lot in my opinion. All you have to do is pretty much Death Strike on cooldown and Blood Boil for AoE threat. Of course you gotta put your diseases up and pull back to D&D. So why not make Death Coil an ability that you put on yourself that will block or absorb or something of that nature the next X amount of incoming hits or spells. To make it so it does not take over Rune Strike, make Rune Strike one of your most threatening and maybe damaging abilities, so it's a good trade-off. And also make it free on parry. Another option would be so Death Coil reduces the damage done by the enemy for an amount of time, but make it so it's something that you use when you need to and not something else to keep up. So what would I pick if this dream was to come true? As Unholy PvP, the talents that I would pick are Rolling Blood, Bone Shield, Death's Advance, Death Pact, Blood Tap, Remorseless Winter or Desecrated Ground. Glyphs are a really hard choice and I would probably be constantly changing them. For majors I would switch between AMS, Death Coil, Enduring Infection, Strangulate and Unholy Command. For the mid tier I would switch between Dark Succor, D&D, Pestilence, Unholy Frenzy and Death Grip. As Frost, the talents I would pick would be Unholy Blight, Bone Shield or Conversion, Chillblains, Purgatory or Death Pact, Runic Empowerment, and finally Remorseless Winter or Desecrated Ground. For major glyphs, I would swap between Icy Touch, Mind Freeze, AMS, Strangulate, and Unholy Command. For the mid tier, I would swap between Dark Succor, D&D, and Death Grip. As Blood Tank, the talents I would pick would be Rolling Blood, Bone Shield, Death's Advance, Purgatory, Runic Empowerment, and Gorefiend's Grasp. For major glyphs I will have AMS and Vampiric Blood probably all the time. And for mid tier I will switch between Outbreak, Dancing Rune Weapon, and Dark Succor. So those are the changes that I would do to DKs right now. All these changes just make sense to me and make it a lot harder to pick talents and glyphs, which is what I consider fun. I hope you guys enjoyed my crazy thoughts and ideas, and if you did, be sure to leave me a like, share and subscribe. If you would like to keep up with my latest content, please follow me on Twitter and like me on Facebook. As always, thanks for watching and good hunting.